Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Welcome back to the Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network. 15 years ago, the U.S. military used the Rapid Equipping Force to quickly meet the needs of warfighting units in Afghanistan. Today, the Ukraine military is using a similar process to generate rapid innovation in tactics and equipment. Could the U.S. do it again if a conflict started on short notice? Joining me with insights on what it takes to organize for effectiveness is the co-founder and CEO of BMNT and former head of the REF, Pete Newell. Mr. Newell, thanks for joining me.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm really interested to know what inspired you to start writing now about the lessons that you learned from the Army's Rapid Equipping Force in Afghanistan. That was 15 years ago. Why bring it back up today?
I spent years talking about it. And first I would say, after I retired, I became an expert student of not just what the REF did, but the social interactions between people and entities that were responsible for doing rapid anything. Today I call that mission acceleration. It's not innovation, and it's not invention. It's not a lot of other things. It literally is understanding what it takes to accelerate an organizational mission to accomplish what they set out to do, whether that was part of what they do or not. The impetus to start writing about it is, obviously I listen to and consume and read, everything coming out of the Ukraine and the dialogue in the United States. And, quite frankly, 90% of the people don't understand what it takes to do what they're actually doing. So the dialogue is wrong from the get-go. So the lessons from REF that we had time to study and really understand who the players were and how they came to be and the relationships that existed, or what I've tried to pull out of those lessons to get people to understand that you don't wake up one day and suddenly have the capability to do mission acceleration. It takes a long time to build that capacity. And we're missing the point in talking about inventing new things and getting them to the battlefield. We're missing the point about what it takes to actually do that at scale at any given time.
So you learned a series of lessons 15 years ago. How do you see those playing out in what Ukraine is doing now?
I'll start with what Ukraine is doing now has taken them 5 years, 4 years, how long? I don't know how long the war's been going on. There's at least 4 years to get where they are today. And the point of, I think the lessons of what I'm trying to tell people is it took the Ukraine 4 years. A lot of people died in the process before they had the capacity to rapidly iterate in a changing battlefield. Imagine this was us someplace else. Are we going to spend 4 years trying to build the capacity to rapidly do this and get the right things to the battlefield? And if the answer is, oh, no, of course not, we're not going to do that, then my question is, okay, so what are you doing today to actually build that capacity? And people, well, we got DIU and we got all this stuff and we're doing stuff. And that's part of the answer. But we have yet to say, I say from a doctrinal standpoint, this is how we're going to do mission acceleration. These are the jobs, these are the roles, these are the functions, these are the money. All those things that are required that are in use in Ukraine today don't necessarily exist in the United States. So we say we have them.
If you were advising Secretary Hegseth, and he's been pretty out front with his desire to accelerate change and innovation in the military, what would you give him as a list of things to do?
Put effectiveness first.
What does that mean in practice?
I'm a fan of efficiency, but efficiency and effectiveness are not necessarily the same thing. We in the United States have this infinite capacity to count aircraft carriers and jets and bombers and things like that. When you think about it, we maintain this massive armada of ships and aircraft that, since we left Afghanistan, it's pretty rare that they drop a bomb or shoot at anything, minus lighting up the Houthis. And so we're spending billions of dollars maintaining capabilities against a future threat. The money that DIU gets is pissant money, yet they're responsible for building the capability and the capacity to actually respond to the type of environment that Ukraine's in. And it's not just DIU. Every service needs to have the ability to do this, because the Army is my most favorite target. You know, at the end of Afghanistan, REF survived maybe a year before they got rid of it. AFC stood up with a mission to do Future's thing, and it took one administration change for the Secretary of the Army to gut AFC of the authorities it needed to actually do that, and set us back to square one. So for Secretary, I'm very vocal, particularly in public, about the things that need to happen. And in this case, I'll take what the DOGE is trying to do with efficiency is one thing. Being efficient does not necessarily make you effective. It just frees up more money. Being effective means changing organizations and really upsetting the apple cart for some folks and changing the way we do business in order to allow us to actually achieve what we would call mission acceleration. What they're doing in Ukraine is accelerating the ability to achieve a mission on a daily basis. What I did with REF in Afghanistan was mission acceleration for battlefield commanders.
I'm speaking with Pete Newell. He's the co-founder and CEO of BM&T. One of the things I noticed in your recent articles is a discussion about the importance of getting frontline feedback back to the institutional leadership. And that seems to be one of the key organizational issues that you bring up, and I suspect it's probably still relevant today. How can we address that kind of concern?
You know, it's I'm going to say a two-way street. It's one, getting information and the actual problems and the conditions they exist in from the battlefield to the institutional leadership. It's also about getting the institutional leadership to the front line and closing the gap between the two. Structurally, if you look at the way we do things, you know, the requirement letters live in one place, the acquisition people live in another place, and the warfighters live in another place. When they deploy, the warfighters go someplace. The research and development folks will tell you the number one complaint is their lack of access to warfighters. And what they used to tell me is, if you would just get those guys to come to us when they come home, we would do all this thing. And my answer would be, why don't I just take you to the battlefield where they're at? I don't know, we can't do that. You know, we can't go, we can't do. That's what led to our deployment of, I call them small engineering and science teams. We had mill vans that were equipped with 3D scanners and 3D printing machines and all kinds of other things. And they were manned by a scientist, an engineer, and an 11 Bravo infantryman whose job was to translate what people were saying. We moved them to the forward edge of the battlefield where they saw soldiers coming back from the missions on a daily basis. That's the type of effect I'm looking for. Institutionally, Fort Liberty, the R&D and acquisition and the rest of the community should have people there. And quite frankly, that'll be part of the deployment package that goes forward.
The military tends to relearn this lesson every conflict.
It does every conflict. You know, there's this interesting dialogue going on LinkedIn about the guy posted how DIU is a national embarrassment and something else. And there was all kinds of talk about it. And, you know, the guy missed the point. It's not that the DIU is not the target. Is we start learning lessons and we build a capacity. As soon as the war's over, you know, the first thing people say is, now you guys have to learn to operate the way, you know, the institution does. And they start whacking things away. And pretty soon you have a shell of what you used to have. You know, it was interesting, you know, a couple of years ago, one of the commanders downrange who was trying to equip the Ukrainians with stuff, one day he was in an interview someplace and he said, our biggest challenge is our inability to do rapid equipment. And you know, my head started to throb because the Army had the preeminent organizational capacity to do rapid equipment called the Rapid Equipment Force. And they didn't stand it back up. They didn't call the people back. They just tried to reinvent the wheel and do it again. And it took them 18 months to 2 years to figure out how to do it again.
As you're talking about this concept of organizational structure that endures and mission acceleration, It occurs to me that these lessons really apply not just to the defense sector, but to almost every sector now: cyber defense, energy, even medical research and public health. So how can agencies who've never heard of these kinds of concepts start to embed the kind of lessons that you're talking about now?
BM&T has probably, we have built and prided ourselves on our ability to teach organizations how to do this and then coach them through doing it. I would call special mission teams. I have very small teams of people that I embed in other organizations who will look across the organization and bring them together and actually teach them the principles in context with what the organizational mission is. And then they will start to suss out the problems that are priorities, and they'll start coaching people actually working those problems down, explaining to them not just solving the problem, but solving the institutional processes that get in the way. We do that for ARPA-H within the health sector. We have done it within the intelligence community, and we still do. We obviously have done it inside DOD, and we've done it for the State Department. And occasionally we do it for, large commercial organizations. But there is, I would say there's a bit of a science and a lot of art. But it's not impossible if you have senior leader champions in organizations that say, yes, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to write a doctrine around it, and we're actually going to run this. And interestingly enough, the Transportation Security Administration is the first federal organization to actually write a doctrine for innovation. And to my knowledge, is still the only one. They actually produced a document that said, this is how innovation is going to work. This is how we're going to sustain it. This is organizationally how we're going to ensure that the pipes are fed full of things. And this is how we're actually going to see not just ideas, but we're going to see real-world deployments of things in the airports or seaports that are going to not just enhance our security, but make us more effective in doing our mission. The Transportation Security Administration, first organization to do it.
Well, thanks for reminding us that innovation doesn't happen accidentally. We have to organize and plan for it, and we need to do it now so that, as you point out in your articles, people don't die while we're working our way through it the next time around.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a capacity that has to be nurtured and developed and maintained. It attrites rapidly because it's largely built around social structure. People have to know each other, and they have to organize around getting something done. That's how Silicon Valley works. You don't raise money from people that don't know you. Literally, people work together because they know one another. They work together. They have official rules and semi-official rules. But the innovation challenge isn't a technology problem. It's a social problem. How do you get the right people in the right room with the right region to do the right things is something you have to practice continually. The government makes it even harder because you keep moving people around. So once you finally get them trained to be able to do something, they're gone. And you have to start over again. So it's not we'll do this once and we'll be good. Within the federal government, it's going to have to be a constant process.
I've been speaking with Pete Newell. He's the co-founder and CEO of BM&T. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Jarian.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.